1, 2, 3. Alright, so let me just, do you guys need a break or anything like that? No? Yes? Okay, so I think I'll just get started with this, and you know, I don't have a lot of time, and there's a lot of things to cover. So the thing I'm going to talk about today is about HTML5. The subtitle is just, you know, stuff that I've just banged out, you know. But the main thing. Oh, by the way, let me introduce myself. I'm Justin. I'm Justin Lee, and I haven't been doing HTML5 for a very long time, as a lot of people here, I'm very sure, has done more HTML5 than me. I only started actually seriously doing web development and HTML5 just probably a year and a half ago. So, and these are some of the things that I've been thinking about and researching about, and just you know, looking at a lot of the other things that we can do with HTML5 in terms of best practices and whatnot. So I'm not like the guru of HTML5 or JavaScript or anything like that. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to make sure that set the stage right in terms of making this a discussion. So I'm sure there are a lot of people out there are a lot of frameworks out there are a lot of different opinions and best practices out there about HTML5, about developing web applications on the different platforms and whatnot, and I want to make it more as interactive as I can. Alright, so if any of you have any suggestions, any frameworks that you use, any you know, questions during when I'm talking, there are a lot of things I don't know. Yes? Question already, wow. Oh, not a question. Okay. So, like I said, as I was saying, there are a lot of frameworks out there on the web. There are a lot of information out there on the web, and I don't know everything. Alright, and I'm just, some of the information here that I just collated together just to help you guys get a foothold in starting where to start developing a proper HTML5 or proper web application that can target with different platforms. So some of the things that just want to bring it out to you right now is majority of the devices support HTML, right? Right? Yes? No? Yes? Yes. Okay. So can you shout out like what devices support HTML and creating applications, like pure applications on the web, web applications? Devices. The most obvious. iOS, okay. iOS, which is a mobile device. Some more. The most obvious. Everybody has to use this.
Chrome.
A desktop, right? Chrome. That's a browser, but yes, Chrome apps, right? Chrome apps is another one. Desktop, right? A desktop uses HTML5 and web and all of that stuff. That's the origins of where we build web applications. What else? Sorry? Just shout out. Loudly, just shout out. I want to get the crowd going. Mobiles, TVs, exactly. So upcoming, which TVs support HTML5 or rather web? Samsung web development, does it? Because I have no idea. You have to tell me. There's so many things happening on the web, right? So you really have to tell me what's going on there. I do know that Sony Bravia TVs, the internet TVs, actually use Opera. So Opera has like a web app kind of ecosystem store thing that Sony TVs can actually use also. So that's something that going forward, you know, the TVs can be using web apps. What are the devices? Right. All right. I will continue my talk. But basically, what I want to tell you is that essentially all the devices that you have going forward, be it whether if it's going to be on your refrigerator, on your microwave, on your mobile phone, your desktop, your whatever, right? Basically with this technology on the web applications and everything, the promise of what Java language itself promised us, a cross-platform, write once, run anywhere ecosystem, this is the promise, or rather, not the promise, but going forward, this is something that we can utilize this technology, utilizing the web applications to develop applications across the multi-platform, multi-ecosystem environment. So this is one of the things, this image is from Paul Irish. He's a very famous person, one of the gurus of the web. And he did this presentation, the tooling of web applications, and he basically gave this, created this image, talking about basically everything that you need to do with HTML, right? So like the boilerplates, the abstractions, the different frameworks that you can use, iteration workflows, tuning, performance tuning, build optimization, and deploy. This in itself, it's actually a good summary of what I'm going to cover, all right? So I'm going to cover pretty much everything there, and it's essentially just to tell you that the web has evolved into something that we actually can bring a lot of the best practices and a lot of the various practices that we use in daily development, like C++, C#, Java, and all of that, right? We have to start bringing those practices over to HTML once on the web applications, once we actually develop larger software, and not just playground software that we just hack up within 30 minutes or so, right? So going forward, we need to know how to manage our source codes, manage unit testings and performance optimizations and all of that on the web. So there are 10 points that I'm going to talk about today, all right? I have no idea what these 10 points are, so I'm just going to read my slides when I, when I see them. So up to now, right, are there any questions about HTML and web development? Oh, wow, this crowd is really difficult to please. All right, so I'm going to try my best to get some interaction going. How many of you are web application developers? All right, a fair number. How many of you are mobile application developers? All right, how many of you actually knows HTML? There we go.
At some level.
At some level, right? At some level. So the thing about this presentation is I'm not going to talk about all that hard code, hard level HTML, and I'm just going to keep at a very high level so that you guys can understand a little bit better. So the first point, or the 10th point, I'm going backwards from 10 to 1. So I have no idea why I did that, so just it felt like it, right? So the 10th point is, the first thing I want to talk about is server versus client. How many of you are PHP developers? ASP.NET developers? Any server developers? Ruby on Rails, how about that? Oh my god, this is a tough crowd. Alright, so I guess you guys might be familiar with what server and client is. Yes? Exactly. Know what server and client is, the difference between server and a client? Alright. So right now, or rather, hopefully previously in the past a year or so, hopefully it's changed, but back then, when we were doing all the server-side stuff, right? PHP, ASP.NET, Ruby on Rails, blah, 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 so and so forth, Python, and whatever, right? What we've always been building is a fat server, thin client. What does that mean? That means that every single code, all the CSS, all the HTML, all the generated code, right? Every single piece of code is generated on the server and served to you to the client. And the client just becomes just a display, right? So the thing about this is that right now, with the evolution of the web applications and technology going forward, a lot of people are still doing this, right? And even though the client has become better in terms of technology, JavaScript is running a lot more efficient because of Chrome and what Google has been doing with their JavaScript optimization. What's it called? V8. Right. Oh my god. Come on, shout out louder, yeah? Alright, so with all the optimizations from V8 and everything, basically about the thin client has become richer. right? You can do a lot more things with the client side on the web. There are a lot of things you can do, for example, like geolocation now. You can do a lot of optimized hardware accelerated animations, right? And what else? What else can you do on the web nowadays that previously thought impossible?
Real-time synchronization.
Real-time synchronization, exactly. How about real-time communication?
Yeah.
Right? Real-time communication, almost real-time communication with web sockets and all of that. I mean, like, technology has brought the client side to be a lot richer and it can produce a lot more things. So one of the things that going forward, when you want to create a new wave of web applications, is what I call the data server rich client. So what does this mean? I'm a consultant by trade, and a lot of people have been, or rather I've consulted quite a few partners and a few clients of mine, and it's actually one of the things that they've always been doing. And they wanted to do like mobile development, mobile web, a little bit more, distributed web and so on and so forth, right? And one of the things that they've always been doing is this same thing, fat server thin client. And the hosted HTML and CSS and JavaScript is all hosted off the server, from a server, I mean, right? Here's the bad thing about that, right? There is always internet problems, right? You can't download, most devices, or if not, some of the devices might not have stable internet connection. For example, your mobile phone, how many of you here have can guarantee a stable internet connection all the time? No, right? So, one of the things that you need to think about is actually removing yourself from thinking about PHP as generating your HTML code, but start thinking about writing HTML as part of a full-fledged client, separated from your server code. All right, and this is one of the things that you need to think about, start thinking about, is that whatever that can be processed on the client side should be processed on the client side. For example, animations. For example, data checking, data validation. Remember back in the days where data validation was done when? Where? On the server. You had to do a post back, check the data validation, and come back, right? And nowadays, we're moving towards data validation of the client, and so on and so forth. So where does the server comes in now? Why should we use a server? Why should we still use a server?
Security on the data in question. Because sometimes, for example, if you're running a bank, you don't want the client to lie to you about a transaction and not know that it's in fact a lie.
Exactly. All right. So, any more?
But other than that, I really don't see any reason why we should be having that level of error checking and checking for lies on what the client is delivering. I mean, there should always be some checks in order to prevent the clients from being tampered maliciously to deliver crashes or from the code to the application.
Exactly.
But by and large, we should start trusting our customers a little bit more.
Really?
Well,
trusting your customers a little bit more. How many agree with that? I'm sorry, but I think we should trust the customers. But as Eugene was talking about, right, in terms of a very good security system, I'm just talking in terms of security system now, rather than if you want a really good security system, trust no one.
Yes, it's true.
Right.
But you don't have to actually check every single thing. Just check the things that could possibly bring down the server.
Yes. Okay. So it is a decision that you have to make based on based on your resources, your there are a lot of factors to that, right? But it's not part of this presentation. So let me just carry on quickly. So I hope you understand what data server and rich client means. That basically the client will consume the data from the server itself, display the data, cache the data, and essentially synchronize with the backend, right? And of course, there are a lot of other data processing stuff they can do on the server. Mind you, okay, a client basically, like right now, you know, this piece of device over here, right? And going forward, how many of you have like, you know, like a 1.5 gigahertz dual core mobile phone? How many of you guys? Or 1 gigahertz? It's like, many years ago, I was like, this is my computer. So the client itself has a lot of processing power, but on the server side, it has more processing power. So some of the things that you can do on the server side. So let me quickly go through. So in order to expose this data out, right, you probably want to expose it using REST services. How many of you know what REST services mean? Right? So anybody can shout out, what does REST stand for? Does it even stand for anything? Alright, never mind. But REST services, I totally can't remember the term for that. But REST APIs are basically, you expose your data in a secure way to your client and then just back and forth, right? Leveraging on the HTTP requests and all of that. So one of the things that I want to talk about, some of the interesting thing is this PHP protocol, this PHP product framework, which is free. It's called Wrestler, and it's created by a Singaporean actually. I don't know if he's here. Is he here? No, it's not here yet. All right, so Luracast created this thing called Wrestler, and it's a PHP framework, I guess. Tool. I guess it'll be a called tool to generate the REST APIs for you automatically from your data itself. So those are some of the things interesting. Web services, how many of you know what web services are? How many of you like it? I don't like it. It's heavy, it's XML, it's yeah. So, but you know, it's still relevant because it has quite a lot of security things in it. But I'm not too sure what the, anybody knows what's happening with the web services side? In the WS star? Anybody? Is anybody still using it? Has it been obsolete? Because the last time I used it was like 2 years ago. I don't know, I just thought of adding this in just in case somebody is still using it. But majority of the time people will be using REST services, okay? The REST APIs. So let me carry on. And of course, you know, in order to enable all this fun, fancy client, rich client, you have HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript. Right? Alright, so the next point is offline versus online. One of the things that I think you want to build, right, your applications, your web applications, is you want to build your applications with this connectivity in mind. Alright? So assume that you have no internet. Always assume you have no internet. Right? And you basically want to make sure that all your entire application is workable, can work in an offline mode, and it doesn't crash when it's in offline. And many times, I've tried a lot of applications in terms of the mobile applications, creating web applications, you know, mobile web applications, right? The moment you have no 3G or no internet, bam, good luck. You know, it doesn't even give an error. It just says close. It just closes. It just like crashes. That's it, right? And some of the things that you need to think about, and that's one of the things that when you go into the testing portion of it, right? You have to think about. You have to build your applications with this connectivity in mind. And of course, with this connectivity in mind, there are a lot of features in HTML5. And I was just discussing with a few people this morning. You know, like what frameworks are available for. That enables this kind of features, you know, in terms of offline caching and all of that stuff. And if anybody knows any frameworks that helps you with offline and online connectivity, like managing this, anybody knows any frameworks?
Because it's part of HTML5.
Yeah, it is part of HTML5, right? But is there any framework in a high level?
Google gave up on
right.
Google Gears,
right.
because they adopted HTML5 instead.
Right, exactly. So they gave up Google gave up the Google Gears to support this HTML5, right? But is there any high-level HTML5, or are people just writing all this from hand, by hand? Because I am writing all this by hand, so I'm not too sure whether if there is a high-level APIs for that. Any?
There's AngularJS.
Oh, AngularJS would be a MVVC. That would be data, separating data and data representation and your UI. But yeah, I think. No, not really. For offline,
It's capable of
it's capable,
giving you a switch
AngularJS is kind of capable to detect the offline. But with HTML5, offline caching is one of the things that you can actually do. So some of the things that a lot of people actually, a lot of my clients actually don't even care to do this. And one of the things I'm trying to put it out to you is that you have to care. You have to think about when you start architecturing your HTML. Right, your web applications, you have to think about, you have to actually design your applications to be able to be offline cached. And of course there is local storage. So the question is, local storage is just a key value pair HTML5 construct where you can store a lot of interesting things and a lot of like your images and whatnot, right? So, and your data. So some of the things that, during onload, right, of your web application, some things that you can actually download is static data. Some things that you can cache or anything like that, you can actually store here in your local storage. For the Google Gmail app, right, a lot of things are basically using the local storage and of course the database that's available, like SQLite and whatnot, SQLite and whatnot for the web browser. Different web browsers have different implementations of the database, right, Saini? Yes? Correct? Yeah. But I think most of them uses SQLite, right? If I'm not wrong. Not too sure. Neither do I. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure too. But because it's so abstracted, right, for HTML, so basically all you do is just open a data connection into the database, the local database, and then you can do synchronization and store your data here. So now that you know something like this, right, you have all the offline capabilities, the database and whatever and all that, and you have your data server, right? You have a server hosting your data. What does this give you? What does this bring to your mind now? Basically, what you want to do is probably you want to do some sort of synchronization between the data on your server side and the data on your client side. Of course, a stripped down version of the data. You can't store your entire like 1 million records in a web client, right? So you want to dice and slice and some stuff, right, and store some data so that when your application is in offline mode, basically your application still works. And you can still do stuff with it. You can still add records, you can do various items and information and manipulation of the data, and then when you get online connectivity, start synchronizing over back to the data, to the server itself. And of course, network connectivity detection. Alright, so it's just a simple few lines of JavaScript code just to detect like whether if you have internet connection or not. So the next thing I want to talk about is responsive design. This is more in terms of the creative side of the UI and UX, right? So some of the things that I want to talk about is that with the multiple screens, right, of devices now. There's so many devices, so many screens, and there's going to be more screens that are coming out, different kinds of screens that are coming out in future. You have what? Your retina display, which goes up to like 2000 something. You're going to have like cinema display, which is going to be like amazingly crazy resolution and all of that. And some of the things that CSS has done is the media queries, CSS tree media queries, which allows you to actually scale your UI design into a different form factor and everything. So one of the things that I want to talk about, right, with regards to this is that now it boils down to usability and user experience, or rather the UI design, so to speak, right? That different screens, different screen sizes, it doesn't matter whether if it's a resolution or not. Different screen sizes, whether it's a TV or whatnot. I recommend and highly encourage you to have and design a different UI altogether to scale between the devices, because frankly speaking, it's not going to have a good experience if you're just going to have the same look and feel across everything. Of course, there are other things that you can do also. So here are some of the frameworks that are available. Get Skeleton. How many of you know what Get Skeleton is? Have you guys heard of it? Yes, one gentleman. Great, Get Skeleton. So this is I have no idea what Get Skeleton is. Gentlemen, can you give a quick kind of like a one sentence shout out of what Get Skeleton is all about? Get Skeleton is a responsive layout, CSS layout framework that that supports all devices. Right? That's what he said. So that's Get Skeleton is a CSS framework. So another one is Less framework. This is more popular. Anybody knows Less framework? Anyone knows? Anyone uses Less framework? Oh my god! Wow. All right, it's time to start using it. This one allows you to also the same thing as Get Skeleton. It allows you to it's a CSS framework that allows you to target multiple screen sizes and different workflows and basically screen flows. YAML. Yeah? Yeah? Oh, apparently this is more popular. Interesting. Okay. So, gentlemen here, can you give me a one sentence description of what YAML is?
Okay, YAML is like a CSS framework that you can do prototyping on that as well. Like generate the CSS for you.
So YAML you can actually do you can do prototyping, UI prototyping, and it will generate the CSS for you. Wow. Okay, there we go. This is something interesting. And all these are the URLs, so YAML.de and so on and so forth, right? So these are some of the interesting frameworks that you guys can actually, take a look at. And I'm not going to go into very much I'm not going to go into any details, because I don't have much time to actually go into a lot of these details here. So these are some of the things that you can do with responsive design. And just Google responsive design. There are a lot of websites out there to help you figure out what responsive design is and how to code proper responsive design. Let me just tell you, straight off, it's not easy to create a proper responsive design. All right? So that's straight off. Platform frameworks versus hand coding. So in terms of, and I'm talking about everything from HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript and all of that. But how many of you hand code your JavaScript? Wow, I love these people already. How many of you uses a framework? Like jQuery, yes. So exactly, right? So these are some of the things that I just want to talk about. Like jQuery mobile, so on and so forth, right? For example, like Sencha.com with the EXT.js, is it? EXT4.js or something like that, and the other frameworks that Sencha has. So these are some of the things. For Bootstrap, Twitter came up with this bootstrapping kind of thing, a framework-ish thing to get you started. Oh, there is also, I forgot to include the HTML5 bootstrap. Yeah, I forgot to include, boilerplate, yes. HTML5 boilerplate, which gets you started, not a framework, a boilerplate, I guess, a template to get you started on HTML, right, to write your web applications. There is the mobile boilerplate and there is the desktop boilerplate. So you can use that to get started with writing your HTML web applications. And of course, this is one of my favorites, the Sass languages. The Sass language and Compass, Less, CSS, and Stylus. So I'm not very familiar with all of this except Sass lang. But I just want to put it out to you guys, just to search and Google. And if you start realizing, right, the web has so many things going on. There's so many frameworks and there's so many, I can't possibly know everything, right? Saeed, you're laughing. Well, maybe you know everything, but I don't, So the Sass language is something interesting in terms of for CSS, right? So it allows you to it's a higher level abstraction of CSS that allows you to actually generate CSS code a lot more efficient and better. And of course, These are some of the frameworks. Alice.js. Alice.js is an animation framework that utilizes CSS animations. How many of you have handwritten CSS animations? Oh my god, guru. So if anybody of you have ever handwritten CSS animations, you know how complex it is. Is it complex? Do you agree with me? Have you done like really fancy animations? Let me show you. I think I loaded up the page here. I'm not too sure whether if I have like fancy animation somewhere. Can I change screens? Apparently not. I can't change screens. Oh, there we go. Let's see if I have Alice loaded up. No, I don't have Alice loaded up. Oh well. All right. So if you do a search, can I like go back? How do I go back? Oh well. Keynote. So if I have Alice loaded up, right, just go to the website and search. Alice, right, does like spinning, and it does have like the whole animation, like the different kind of skewing animations and all of that fun stuff, right? And in order to do that in CSS, basically you have a lot of crazy work. I'm sure you've probably done like a little bit of CSS stuff, right? Or anything fancy.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
Wow, he's my...
What used to be, let's say 10 lines of JavaScript code, you could use one CSS condition property to do that. The pain is when you have to use vendor prefixes.
Okay, vendor prefixes, right? But what if you do more complex animations?
Yes, then you have to change, if you have to chain up animations and stuff, then you probably have to write some JavaScript to abstract some of this.
So here's the thing, right? You actually can do all of that purely in CSS. And with Alice.js, or rather Alice.js, what it does is it's a framework that allows you to, one line of JavaScript, it will generate the CSS to do all the different kinds of animations for you. Right? So this is one of the interesting frameworks that I really like to use, and I use it very regularly. So the next one is more in terms of like for the client side, abstraction of data and the layering of your application. So how many of you know what three-tier application? What's it called again? Three-tier data layer thingy. You know, how many of you know what that is?
MVC.
Sorry. MVC, right? Like basically you have a three-tier thing, right? Thingamajig, right? I don't know what that is. Copied from. But anyways, essentially MVC and MVVM is abstraction of all your different your model, which is your data, and your view, and basically your logic itself, right? So back then, way before, actually not way before, just a year or two ago, right? There wasn't such a framework or any of these methodologies or concepts of best practices within the JavaScript or side of things. Obviously, back then it was growing, it was starting the interest and everything, and a lot of the best practices from the really existing like C, C++ side of things, they started bringing this over, and MVVM and MVC is one of that, right? So these are some of the frameworks that are available for you to use. Lesser known, AngularJS.org. I think this is a Google initiated project, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Is it? Yeah. It's a Google, or Google bought it, or hired person.
It's built from Google.
It's built from Google,
yeah,
right?
within
Okay.
Google.
So it's built from Google, and essentially what this constructs are, it separates your data so that essentially when you grab data from your server, right? When you grab data from your server, you do the caching and everything. You want to load the data. It basically loads the data in a very nice abstracted way using JavaScript, right? And it's all like curly brackets and everything. That's the only thing I remember about AngularJS is the curly brackets in data representation, right? Something like that. And the other one, more popular, would be Backbone.js. How many of you are gurus of Backbone? How many of you have heard of Backbone? Yay! How many of you use Backbone? How many of you can explain to me what Backbone.js is? Someone. Just raise up your hand. What is backbone? Okay, those people who raised up your hand actually heard of it and used it. Explain what backbone is. Really?
You gotta point at somebody.
Alright, I gotta point at Saini. she's my backup speaker kind of. So what? Give me one sentence. What is Backbone JS?
It's a client-side MVC to organize and spit out your data.
Yeah, it's a client-side MVC to spit out your data.
MVC, but MVV.
MVVM, right? It's more like an MVVM, right? So if you don't know what the difference between MVC and MVVM, go Google. Google is your best friend. there is a very good article by what's his name from ThoughtWorks. I can't remember his name. No. The guy that just came to Singapore the other thing. Martin Fowler. Yeah, Martin Fowler. There we go. He wrote a very good article on the difference between MVVM, MVC, and the MVP, and why they are different and what the pros and cons are. So you might want to Google that and take a look at it. Right. The other one that is supported by, I think this is supported by Microsoft, if I'm not wrong. It's Knockout.js. Knockout.js.com. How many of you heard Knockout.js.com? Knockout? Yeah? What do you think of it? Gentlemen over there, what do you think of Knockout.js.com? Right, Knockout.js. Any thoughts on that?
Haven't really explored.
Haven't really explored. Alright, how many of you have explored Knockout.js? Yes? Gentlemen.
Okay,
this is my best friend now.
It's quite lightweight, but one thing I would like, you need to write the data binding inside the tag.
You need to write the data binding inside the tag.
Yeah.
Okay. Isn't it the same as AngularJS?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. AngularJS, you have to do like a curly bracket thing and then just put the data tag within the HTML. Yes. Really? Yes. That's how you do it. Double curly brackets. Okay, the AngularJS person is telling me no. I'm wrong. Alright, so the other one is Ember.js. All these are just MVC frameworks and MVVM frameworks and all of that, right? To help you, assist you in abstracting and architecturing your JavaScript and your web applications. So the next thing is the more fun thing, the fifth one, which is performance optimization. And some of the things that you can do, right? And this is some of the things that a lot of people don't do, is to optimize your web applications. And some of the optimizations, you can actually go to yslow.org. Heard of yslow? Now you know, yslow. It basically detects all your different ability to optimize basically all the different things that you can do. Let me see if I can get the website out. yslow, there we go. And there it is. Some problem. There we go. So these are some of the best practices and rules that when you pass it through, you can just basically check all of this. And this is like the key to web performance and best practices, right? There are other things, for example, there's something wrong with my keyboard. So yslow, and the other one is like JSLint. This is, how many of you know what C++ lint is and all the Java lint and all of that, right? So essentially this is just checker for the best practices for your JavaScript, and so on and so forth. Other things, for example, like CSS lint. CSS lint is the equivalent for JS lint for CSS. So some of the interesting things. And going forward, like you have all these external files and everything, and one of the things that you would want to do, right? Best practice is actually to have one CSS, one JavaScript, and you want to minify that. How do you go about minifying that? You probably want to use require.js to help you, assist you with that, or you can actually create one file, right? One file of JavaScript to import everything, and one file of CSS to import all your various CSS for your files. So these are some of the things. in terms of debugging, the next thing, you have to debug your application, right? So debugging your application, how many of you have actually done this? How many of you have used this JavaScript like many times? I know I have. Wrong way of doing it, but it is still something that you know, for quick debugging and checking what the hell is wrong, why didn't your JavaScript load and everything, you know, you can actually do that. But now we have something called the Web Inspector. This is something that we can get from Chrome. So let me take a look at that. Let me just go to one of these websites here. Maybe this website would be nice. You know, what's it called? Option Command J. And then there we go. So basically this is the Web Inspector. You can do a lot of interesting things, for example, like networking, resources, check your resources, your performance, and do a lot of testings and all of that. You can do JavaScript breakpoints, you can debug your JavaScript, you can actually, the console is actually very good. You can immediately change a lot of the, or rather query a lot of your JavaScript stuff, and of course all the elements you can actually change stuff here. So this is one of the things, it's live, right, on your client side itself. So let's say, for example, if I want to change some stuff here, you know, I can basically, let's say, hello, and I've changed my website. So some of the things that you can actually do with all this, right? And of course, a little bit less known is that for the debugging side of things, a little bit less known is something what we call the, okay, I just covered this too, something what we call the Remote Web Inspector. So, how many of you know PhoneGap? Right, PhoneGap. In the recent version of PhoneGap 2.0 Cordova, they've actually included Web Inspector, Remote Web Inspector. And what Remote Web Inspector is that it helps you expose a web inspector client on your mobile phone or your whatever device that you're writing on, and you can do exactly the same thing as what I did on Chrome, and basically do your live coding and check the performance and all of that remotely from an external browser. All you need to do is just connect to a URL, and that's it. You can start debugging your application from the device itself. Right? So that's something very cool that I think would really help people for the mobile web, and going forward also with regards to hopefully the TVs and whatnot, right? I need to do this pitch. So on our BlackBerry, on the BlackBerry devices also, it comes inbuilt. Remote Web Inspector comes inbuilt into the devices for doing debugging for your web. So everything that you get, you know, for JavaScript breakpoints and all of that stuff, right? You can actually do all of that same thing on your mobile devices and going forward. So the other thing that this is also lesser known is called Adobe Shadow. How many of you have heard Adobe Shadow? Right? So yes, I'm gonna get your help again, Jimmy.
Me?
So can you tell me what Adobe Shadow is in like one sentence?
It shadows your mobile device, right?
So basically, it shadows your mobile device. What does shadowing your mobile device mean?
Screen on your desktop.
So it shows the screen on your desktop and everything, and it allows you to do some mobile debugging, testing, development, and whatnot. So this is very similar to the Web Inspector and everything. And a lot of things are mobile oriented, but I'm very sure going forward there will be a lot of other tools that will be available for the other screen devices also. Of course, very important, logging. Log4j. This is something just, you know, exactly the same as log4 Java and so on and so forth. Right? The next one, testing. I'm finishing, so bear with me very fast. I'm going to finish soon. For basically testing, right, what are some of the things that you need to start testing on? You have to test on a physical device. There are simulators out there. There are basically screen simulators and everything. So some of the things that you want to test on is actually the screen itself and the resolution. So different screens, you have no idea how your UI and UX might look on a bigger screen at a lower resolution or something like that. So you might want to actually do physical testing and simulator testing. Other things, for example, like the devices itself, you might probably want to load the device, load the application on the device itself and do the testing. Of course, if you're doing like web applications on the desktop itself, there are how many browsers are there right now? Firefox, Chrome, Safari, maybe not Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer, Opera, 5 of them, right? Yeah. Internet Explorer 10 is supposed to be quite good, yeah? I think so, you know. Very good. Thumbs up from the Microsoft guy over there. So, but here's the thing, right? Maybe a request from me to the Microsoft guys. You know, I'm using a Mac. I can't test IE on a Mac, and I don't know where. I don't want to like install VMware. So maybe you know you guys can bring your engine over to the Mac or something like that, so that we can do that. Buy a PC. There we go.
Make better PC.
Of course, the other thing, for example, right, you want to do like user agent simulation. Yes, I know, I'm running out of time. I know, just give me like 5 more minutes. Okay, user agent simulation, and basically there are a lot of plugins like Firefox plugins, Chrome plugins, and essentially Safari comes built in. That you can actually change the user agent and you can add various user agents. Okay? So next, IE tester. This is only running on Windows PC. Yes, and just a shout out to like with Microsoft itself, right? There is actually a very good tool. Maybe Jonathan might want to shout out what the tool is that allows you to do like a lot of device testing and screen resolution testing. Is it called Blend? No, what was the web tool that you guys have? Web Express? Web Express or something like that?
So Super Preview.
Super Preview, right? Yeah. So Microsoft side has a Super Preview thing that allows you to do the different testing of IE6, IE7, IE8, IE9, and hopefully IE10. I think so. But anyways, okay, so next will be unit testing, and not exactly unit testing. This is Jasmine, and Jasmine is kind of more of a behavior testing, but it was originally called, if I'm not wrong, it was originally called JS Unit or something like that, Unit JS. And Pivotal actually took over the project and transformed it into Jasmine. So this is some of the things that you might want to take a look at. Of course, deployment. Next, you might want to think about continuous integration, CI. There are a lot of interesting CIs, like for example Jenkins CI and Travis CI, and for example like actual device testing stuff. So some of the things that you can host your for integration and all of that, Heroku and Nodejitsu. And of course, lastly, after you have all done that and actually deploy, hopefully, you probably want to sit back and enjoy and revel into what you have actually done, the success. So the last thing I want to talk about is really going forward. The whole idea about this presentation is not to give you what exactly is HTML5, right? The whole idea of this presentation is to tell you that, make you know that the web is becoming semantic, right? And we are working on becoming more ubiquitous across the multi-screen, multi-devices, multi-whatever, right? And in order to achieve that, you need to have the best practices. And these are some of the things that I have actually gone through with you guys in terms of the best practices. And it's not limited to, it is something that there are a lot of resources and everything, and there are a lot of frameworks out there, and I can't cover all of them really in depth, or else I'll need like 10 days or maybe a month to actually go through every single thing in depth, right? So, but learn yourself, right? Just remember that the devices are connected nowadays, and because internet connections are going to be ubiquitous and everyone's going to have internet connection, and there must be offline mode also. So these are some of the things. So any questions? And then I'm basically ended. Who's the next speaker actually? Any questions? If you have any questions, where is the organizer? It's supposed to be like the next speaker and get the next speaker in. But since there's no next speaker, then I'm just going to answer questions. Any questions? No questions? Oh, there we go. Are you the next speaker? There we go. You can start, doing things. Any questions? No questions? Thank you very much.